A new big transfer is sweeping the airwaves here, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions on it, but I'm going to try and cut through the crap and provide you the sort of detailed, well-researched, incredibly detailed analysis that you expect on this channel, where I just sit down and talk about random shit. All right, we're talking about Leny Yoro today, who's an 18-year-old center back from Lille that Manchester United are signing for somewhere between like 50 to 70 million dollars. Basically, it's going to end up landing somewhere in that range. The reports kind of vary on exactly where it is, so I'm not going to give you one number, but it's a lot of money. It's probably going to be like 50 million pounds or something, which distributed over a 5-year contract is 10 million a year or whatever. But I believe it's a 5-year contract and then 12 months more. But this transfer is significant for a lot of reasons. One, Leny Yoro has been linked to Real Madrid very heavily, and Florentino Perez definitely wanted to bring Leny Yoro into Real Madrid, but he totally didn't want to do it right now. Leny Yoro was going into the final year of his contract, which meant that Florentino Perez, being Florentino Perez, he definitely wanted to get Leny Yoro for free at the end of his contract, and it seems very clear, based off of the various stories that I've seen, right, that Real Madrid did not want to get dragged into a bidding war for Leny Yoro. They were basically just trying to do what they've done with so many other players, Kylian Mbappe recently, where they are working the back door, right? They're working the back door and they're saying, look, we know you want to come to Real Madrid. You now know that we want you. Let's work together to make this kind of as cheap as possible. There's a great post from Fabrizio Romano, which is quoted here by a Madrid site, which says, the Real Madrid's message to Leny Yoro essentially says, if you want to be a Real Madrid player, you have to understand our strategy and our timing. Otherwise, you're free to go wherever you want. This is the sort of baller, like badass move that Florentino Perez seems to always pull in these sorts of situations. I go back to the story about Antonio Rudiger 5 years before Rudiger joined Real Madrid or something. He got a note from Florentino Perez after he got injured saying, hey, I wish you a speedy recovery. I could see you being a Real Madrid player one day. And that like reframed Antonio Rudiger's entire mind. Like, he didn't believe he was ever going to be good enough to play for Real Madrid until he got that message. And then all of a sudden he was there. It's like Florentino Perez is the fairy godmother granting the wish of every player that he attempts to sign. But what's really interesting about this is that, as you already know, Leny Yoro is not doing that. Now, initially, the idea was that Manchester United was trying to sign Leny Yoro, but he was going to end up going to Real Madrid, and that was fine. Instead, what has happened is the deal appears to be agreed, like Fabrizio Romano level agreed. I mean, it's gone really quickly over the course of today. Fabrizio Romano's already tweeting about medical tests like being conducted today, all contract details being approved. Somehow, some way, the new administration at Manchester United was able to convince Leny Yoro that coming to Manchester United was a good move. And I realize that at various points I have been quite hard on Manchester United, but now I feel like some people are being a little hard on Manchester United for this transfer, when I actually believe it's a fantastic move. You might be saying, well, Manchester United should have waited. They should have waited until his contract ran out. Why are they paying, 50 million pounds or $67 million or whatever it ends up being in order to get Leny Yoro now? And the answer to that question is because they had to. If they wait until his contract runs out and it's a competition between Manchester United and Real Madrid, well, that's not really a competition, is it, when it comes to being able to sign players? So if Manchester United wants to sign Leny Yoro, then it's going to have to fork over the money to get that deal done a year early. Now, Leny Yoro had the opportunity to play one more year at Lille, who are in the Champions League, or move to Manchester United and play there immediately. And somehow, some way, the new administration at Manchester United convinced him that moving to Manchester United now would be better for him, would be, more fun, more engaging, new challenge, new experience, right? And being able to cinch what, according to David Ornstein, is a 5-year deal with 12 extra months. That's massive for Manchester United. You've got Leny Yoro under contract until the age of 23. We're talking about a player, by the way, who made his first team debut for Lille at 16 years old and was an important part of a team that finished in Champions League positions in his age 18 season. I mean, this is a guy that is on the fast track to greatness. He's widely considered one of the best center back, He's widely considered arguably the best center back prospect in Europe right now. And Manchester United, it is very well known, desperately needs help at center back. That's not the only reason I like this transfer. I like this transfer a lot because it shows a change in approach for Manchester United. They're not trying to be what they once were. Manchester United, when I was a child, right, when I was growing up, when I was playing FIFAs and learning about the game as an American, was what Real Madrid kind of seems to be now, and what Real Madrid has been for a very long time. Not that they weren't that earlier, right? But Manchester United was a team where when players became really good, they would then sign them. Not that Manchester United didn't use its youth academy. It clearly did in a very famous way with the class of 92. But Manchester United was a team that would steal, like Van Persie, for example, from Arsenal, right? They would steal the best players from other clubs because they had that kind of pull and that kind of gravitas. Well, what ended up sinking Manchester United over the last couple of years was signing a bunch of players that they thought were at the top of the game, but ended up sucking. Like actually just sucking eggs repeatedly and giving them massive contracts. That's what ended up sinking the team. Signing Leny Yoro, getting a nice long contract on a young player, right? In like being able to provide yourself with plenty of resale value. Right, there is a lot of resale value on Leny Yoro, right? By the time this guy turns 21, 22 years old, he could be worth well north of 100 million. And even if he goes to Manchester United and tears his ACL, we're obviously hoping that doesn't happen, and just plays terribly for a year or two, he's still going to be worth like 40 or 50 million because of all of the potential and the ability that he's already shown. And even at that point, he'll be, 21 years old? There is the opportunity for him to rehabilitate his image and provide plenty of resale value. You're not going to end up in a Harry Maguire situation where there just isn't a club willing to pay a lot of money for Harry Maguire, even though you invested a ridiculously large amount of money in signing him in the first place. Leny Yoro provides a completely different situation. Now, we don't know what the wages are yet, but I would also be willing to wager, you like that one? I'd be willing to wager that his wages are way lower than what somebody like Matthijs de Ligt would have required, where de Ligt was being linked with Manchester United, and there's a lot of stories going around that United basically turned down the opportunity to spend $50 million or whatever to get Matthijs de Ligt. I would bet that his wages were going to be a lot higher than Leny Yoro coming in. And Leny Yoro's got an opportunity to grow with perhaps a new core of players, and I don't know, Garnacho and Rasmus Højlund. They're building that next generation. There's just so many things about this transfer that make a lot of sense and I like. The only thing that you can't say, right, if you're a Manchester United fan and you're looking at this transfer, you can't say that you like pulled the wool over Real Madrid's eyes. Florentino Perez basically never loses in these types of situations, right? I don't know when Leny Yoro is going to end up on Real Madrid, but Real Madrid's got that pull and that gravitas. And as long as Leny Yoro hasn't decided in his mind that he's just not going to go to Real Madrid and somehow Manchester United's convinced him that he's going to spend his whole career at Manchester United, it's like you're trying to run up a hill covered in grease and eventually you just slide back down to Papa Perez at some point. And I keep going back to that freaking quote, dude. I keep going back. It's such a baller quote. If you want to be a Real Madrid player, you have to understand our strategy and our timing. Otherwise, you're free to go wherever you want. That is just such a badass quote from a club administrator to be dropping in this situation. But I think Leny Yoro is going to be able to get a lot of high level experience right away. I think he's going to get a ton of matches at Manchester United. So I think for Leny Yoro, this kind of makes sense too. And then as he matures into his career, maybe by the time he's 27 or something, then he can go on to Real Madrid if that's still something that he wants to do. Not that Manchester United should aspire to become a developmental club, but right now, in the same way that Xavi, before he got fired by Barcelona for suggesting it, realized that Real Madrid was just running a different race than Barcelona, Real Madrid's running a different race than Manchester United right now. I think Sir Jim Ratcliffe realizes that. I think the administration realizes that. And if I was playing Football Manager, I wouldn't give this an A, but this is definitely a strong B plus type transfer as long as we're looking at that, that 5-star potential that everybody seems to agree Leny Yoro has. And obviously he's shown so far playing at a high level with Lille. And who doesn't love a young center back? An 18-year-old center back you could splash the money for, and it's center back. My goodness, if he does stay at Manchester United, you're looking at somebody that you could have playing at a world-class level for 16 years, right? I mean, that is obviously wishful thinking on the Manchester United side, but it just shows the point that Manchester United is now buying with sell-on value and investing in a generation of players on a wage that seems fairly acceptable, that makes more sense. I was very hard on Jim Ratcliffe and his previous history of owning the other clubs that he's owned. But this is not a bad start to his time at Manchester United. It's not. And this signing is not as bad as some people are portraying it to be.